I think I'm bringing these to the next meeting. Are we live yet? Good morning. We have had some difficulty getting sound on the camera. I don't know if we've got it. Are we on or not? We don't even know. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We want to thank you for coming. You know what? This is why it's important to come. You fellowship with other believers, and if the camera don't work, you still get to see it. But we're going to have some exciting stuff. If you're an animal lover, you hate fireworks. But guess what? They're not going to go away. So how do we prepare our horses for fireworks? The same way I prepare for loud noises. I have earplugs that I wear when I mow or use a chainsaw. I thought about getting them last night because they were already shooting fireworks in my neighborhood. But Tegan's going to help us today, and we're going to learn how to help your horse get through the fireworks, because people, there's going to be fireworks. You can't stop rednecks, or it's not even rednecks doing fireworks. Where I come from, they shoot guns. We're going to do that today too. So we're going to get started. Tegan, tell us one of the things we can do to prepare our horse.
Well, earplugs definitely are one of them. As you guys know, any loud noises affect you, but you stuff something in your ear to block the noise, and it's going to dull the noise some. Some horses don't care about the noise. Others, the earplugs really, really help. Most English tack stores carry earplugs. I don't know about the Western ones, but the English ones do. And if you don't want to go to a tack store, a lot of times you can find your earplugs either in the pet store or on Amazon. They are little cat toys. They're just little cat balls. And you want to make sure they're relatively squishy. Some of them are kind of hard. You don't want something hard in your horse's ear. But it's really, really simple. Skipper's having fun with my toys. What we do, because we do mounted shooting, so we will use these little cat balls in the mounted shooting. You're shooting guns past your horse's head. You'd like to protect their hearing a little bit. So we'll actually take these little squishy cat toys. We'll get a set of knee-high nylons, just pantyhose. Shove the little ball down in the toe, tie a knot so it doesn't slip back up, and then we tie the two pantyhose together. What we can do with this is when we're riding, we'll just loop the pantyhose around the bridle up here. So if the horse shakes the earplugs out, you don't have to go searching in a 500 square foot arena for your tiny little earball. But yeah, so this is one simple way that you can help protect your horses from the noise.
Now, if you've never put earplugs in your horse, that might be a training episode, because they
Absolutely.
don't normally like them the first time, and they're going to shake them out probably. So it's something that you got to prepare for. But we want to do a little bit of housekeeping today. Is the fact that there will be no classes tomorrow night. The men's won't meet. The women's Zoom will not meet. Next Sunday, 1 week from today, we're going to have baptism after church. So if anybody, I've heard a few people, they're thinking about it, they're talking about it like don't put it off. Just be obedient. So see me, that's going to be next Sunday. So the Declaration of Independence was when they drew up and dispatched to Great Britain a request that America be freed from British rule. There's times when I feel like that today. I want to be freed of the mandates that our government puts on us. Remember when they shut the church down and they told you had to wear a mask and you had to be vaccinated? That's mandates that we want to be free from, and we're going to talk more today about the freedoms that we have through religion, because there has been a turn of events in the Supreme Court that has changed America, and we don't even understand it. So where are you at? What are you doing? You're behind me. That bothers me a little bit.
I don't know why.
So she's gathering up stuff, ammunition, I think. You know, we found ourselves today in a godless government. Do you know that they're trying to take one nation under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance? They're trying to take in God we trust off of our money. They're trying, and we're going to talk about that later. I'll just get excited. Go ahead, Tegan.
So one of the ways that you can start introducing your horse to noise are these little tiny snappers that, you know, everybody likes to throw at your feet. They're not nearly as loud as the one that Skipper's already done. So he does not have any earplugs in right now because these are so mild that I want him to try to be okay without any noise blocking. And these, sometimes you can snap them in your hand. So if you can snap them in your hand, you could even walk your horse around with them and start getting them used to them. And so here, he's chasing the noise. It's not chasing him.
That's important.
Be aware, too, if your horse is a scooter, like you're kind of seeing him jump and want to run forward even though the noise is in front of him, make sure your horse isn't going to run you over. But so this would be a very gradual way that you could start them on the noise. And you notice he's just kind of now figuring out that it's just random noise happening. Understand, this horse has been shot off of before. He just doesn't like it very much, so he has been around noise. It's just not his personal favorite thing.
You know, and that's a good thing. Fireworks is not my personal thing either when I'm trying to sleep. And I don't mind watching it when I'm awake, but when I'm asleep, last night, my insides jumped. You know, I was asleep and it go boom, and I could feel my insides jump, but I don't think I jumped on the outside. I don't know. I was asleep. Behind me again.
Trying to not be in the way of the camera.
I understand, but we're going to go in a lot of different directions today, and one of them is we're going to give a lot of ways to help desensitize horses. And you know, you've heard me say it over and over again that one of them is play loud music. Put a radio in there. I preferably like to play Spanish music because it has a lot of bass and boom, 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 and it drowns out the booms up in the air. Some horses are scared of the sight. They don't want to see it boom and fall down. Put them in a stall where they can't see. You know, put a fly mask on them where it's not as bright. There's a lot of things that we can do to help our horse. Let me tell you what will not help your horse during fireworks. Complaining on Facebook. It won't help your horse a bit. And it ain't going to change anything. But, you know, that's our nature. We want to complain rather than work at fixing it. You know, and that's where we've been. It's where we've been in society. That's where we are sometimes with what's going on in the world. We want to complain about it, but how much do we do about it? You know, the best illustration I've got is a week or so ago, there was I don't even know what you call it, but it was something that happened at the school board that they were going to declare whether June was Pride Month or not. Over 1 million adults in Hillsborough County, and 50 showed up to say we don't want that in our school. Wow. Now, I understand part of that problem is getting the communication to the people. And I promise you, I'm working on that. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to work on organizing and uniting the people that feel our way more, because that's ridiculous to have 50 people out of 1 million to show up and say, you know, we don't want this in our school. That's not what you should be teaching. So, you know, and part of that came from, if you remember last week, I said 7.2% identify as LGBTQ plus. I think they've added a 2 to it now. I don't even know. But in schools, they say that percentage is 20. Now, why is that? It's because they're teaching it in schools and encouraging it and promoting it. And this has got to stop. and it will stop when God's people stand up and say it's got to stop. So, just like training a horse to do fireworks. What else can we bang him with?
We're not creative enough today.
Well, I've got a lot to say, so you got to scare your horse. I like these little poppers. He reacted to them. I'll get right over here and pop you.
Remember, those are cheap fireworks right there. And so using these little party poppers is a great illustration of knowing, what does your horse react to? Is it the noise, or is it the visual? Or is it both? And so having him in the mounted shooting, I know with him, it's actually more the visual. So having something like that right in his face is a bit trippy for him, where some horses, it would have been the noise.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way of knowing how you need to prepare your horse for it. If they can't stand the visual, I had a horse that hated flashes. Every time we had a thunderstorm, she'd stand in her stall, and every time a lightning bolt struck, she'd just jump. Never cared about the thunder. That's a horse that, if you can, you may want to enclose your stall so that they don't have to see any of it. They don't care about the noise, it's the visual. Don't make them watch it.
And I'm a proponent of, I'm so old school, do they even still have fly mask?
Yes, they have a ton of fly masks.
Okay, well, you can get one and even shade it a little darker, so it takes some of that brightness out.
Yeah.
You know what? Every little step, you'll find out that every horse is a little bit different. Just like you say, one of them might be the flash, the boom, you know, and the other one, it might be the noise. So we got to work with both sides of it.
Yep.
I want to, I can't say that. We're kind of in an agricultural area here in Plant City. I grew up in Hardy County where it was all agriculture, and we live in a bubble. We don't know what it's like. Have any of you, you know, I'll just take a survey, I don't know how many people we got here, but how many of you have ever been to St. Pete Beach during June? I went once and left. Or you go to Disney World on Gay Day and everybody's wearing red. If you haven't witnessed that, you don't understand what's going on in America, because the agricultural world is different than the big cities. And we are really good, my name is Skipper, about you leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. And that's how I kind of grew up. But people, they're not leaving us alone. And how many of you said they're coming after our children? Let me tell you what I found this week. They had a gay parade in New York. The day before, they had a drag parade. And you know how when you go down the parade route, you have a chant that you just keep saying over and over again? Well, let me tell you, let me read their chant. I don't want to misread this. It says, "We're here, we're queer, and we're after your children." People, you're in a war and don't even know it, because we got our head in a bubble. We don't know what's going on because the news only tells you what they want you to hear. All they want you to know is, oh, you know, equality, diversion. You're supposed to love and not judge. People, let me give you a little hint. In heaven, Satan convinced a third of the angels to turn away from God. And what did God do? He kicked him out. Today, Satan's still doing the same thing. He's trying to get people and children to turn away from God. And if Christians don't stop that, if the church don't stop that, if the preachers don't lead the church to stop that, who's going to? Who's going to? Because there's a spiritual battle going on, and it's got to be won with spiritual weapons. Tegan, I can just keep going. What are we going to do next? Oh, you going to walk up here and get closer?
In a sec. So, well, wait a second.
Fireworks don't wait for you to get ready. Just saying.
I'm helping prepare for the fireworks. So some horses, if they're a little too reactive for you to be the one up there throwing the snaps and holding the horse, maybe have a partner help you with it. And you could be out here walking your horse around, keeping you between where the noise is going to be and the horse, so that when they jump from the noise, they don't jump on you. And you can be a little bit of a herd type leader where you're protecting them. It helps them get a little more accustomed to it without feeling like it's just coming after them. And so here I might say, hey, Skipper, you want to toss one? He's looking at it. He could see it. It wasn't charging up behind him. And then he reacted so well to that, I might say, okay, do it now while it's a little behind him. And so then as you see them getting a little more accustomed to this, you could move them closer to where the noise was until they're accustomed to it there. And then, go ahead. And then
run out of ammunition.
Maybe you can come up and do it yourself.
Ooh, that scared me.
And notice how even though the noise was in front of him, he jumped forward. They don't always comprehend where the noise came from. They just feel the need to get away from it. Okay, so that's where it's super important. Know your horse. Know that they have the manners. Know they're not going to jump on top of you. A different horse might have just jumped on me there. Or over the fence.
If you will, because people don't understand it, show me the wrong place to be. When you're on the other side of the horse and I scare him, where is he going?
Over you.
Even if they're sideways and you're on the wrong side of them and they get scared, they're going to go over you. So where you're at with your animal is super important. You know, if we had a different horse here, we would get a lot different reaction. I just called Tegan and said, hey, we want to help people with fireworks. Bring one of your ponies.
This would be an example of a bad spot to be in, because while I know him well enough, he's probably going to jump forward. Now, what you guys couldn't see with me is in preparation for that, I actually braced my arms against him, so if he did jump this way, he pushed me out of the way instead of jumping on top of me. But that would be a really bad place to be, because if he jumps away from the noise, where's he going? Yeah. And some horses find protection in their human. When you get scared, where do you go? Your protection zone. I don't want a 1,000-pound little pony jumping on top of me because he thinks I'm the safe zone.
You know, that's why it's really important that horse knows his boundaries. You know, if a horse steps on your foot, is it the horse's fault? He stepped on your foot. It's called healthy boundaries. If you'd have had him at a healthy distance, he'd have never stepped on your foot. You know, and the same thing goes. Just every horse is different, aren't they?
Every horse is different. This is where, you know, it's really important to know your horse, know their reactions, know how they react. Don't assume they're going to react a certain way, but be prepared for that reaction. You know that you can move your horse away from you if you need to. How well-mannered are they? How big do you have to get before you can move them? And what I mean by how big is if I want him to turn, I didn't have to touch him. He just went, oh, she's coming through, I gotta move. Some horses you have to be like, oh my goodness, get away from me, and you have to get super big before they'll even move. Those are the horses that are most likely to jump on top of you because they already don't respect your space bubble.
I'm changing things up a little bit, because that was an excellent training thing you just talked about. So many people, especially if you watch trainers on TV, maybe a Clint Anderson, I think he's the first one I saw it. Clint Anderson used to have a hula hoop. And he said, the horse is not allowed into my hula hoop. Well, if you think about this hula hoop, and he's not allowed in it, the same thing should work. If the loop moves towards him, he should stay out of it. And people miss that part. That's horse training. I see you as the leader. Okay, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. I don't care. My name's Skipper. As long as you don't complain, I don't care. Now, if you complain, do something about it. But here's something I know about a pack of wild dogs. Dogs, horses, it's a herd mentality. But dogs tend to show this illustration a little better because how many humans try to make their dog a human, a child? Never mind. Where was I at? I had a flash of my daughter calling the dog their third child. Made me lose my train of thought. If you have a pack of dogs and they lay down to take a nap, and maybe one of them's old like me and he's got to get up in the middle of the nap and go to the bathroom. And we're going to say that cover right there is the alpha dog. When they get up to go to the bathroom, they go around the alpha dog. Now, if the leader gets up to go to the bathroom, when he walks, the dogs get up and get out of the way. Now, I ask, which does your dog do? Does he get up when you walk, or do you walk around him? You step over him. You know, and like I said, I don't care. You do it how you want to, but when you run into trouble, that's part of the cause. You're not the alpha. You are the provider. You give them a lot of love, support, feed. You take care of them, but you're not the true leader. I had a conversation this week. Who was it with? It was somebody about many times dogs are more prone and more attracted to the men than they are the women, although the women are the ones that take care of them. Why is that? Because generally speaking, men make them have more respect, and they're attracted. Horses and dogs are attracted to leadership. They're not attracted to the treat. They like it and they'll take it. But it's the leadership that says respect. That's how one horse gains respect over another, by moving their feet, by controlling their direction, speed, and space. So what have we got next before I get going again? That was free.
Earplugs. How to put them in.
That's good. That would be a good thing to know.
So you'd think it's pretty simple, and it is pretty simple, but you don't want to just take your little ear ball and just shove it down in there. Have you ever put earplugs in and you shove it in there? It's like a vacuum. It forms a pressure, and it's not comfortable. We're already asking them to do something that's unnatural. Let's make it as comfortable as possible. So I'm not going to take his ear and just wham this in. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set it at the base of his ear, and I'm going to gently roll it in as I kind of squish it. Precursor to this, make sure your horse is okay with you handling their ears. If you can't touch your horse's ears, don't try an earplug. You're just going to make things worse. So my horses are very accustomed to me handling them. I can stick my fingers in them. They don't care. Some horses are ticklish, and it doesn't matter how much training you do, you just can't do that. They're ticklish. So I'm just going to take this earplug, and I'm just going to gently set it at the base and squish and roll until it stops. And I'm going to get it in there, kind of shove it in. You're not trying to shove it all the way down into his brain, but you want it in far enough that it's going to have a seal, and it's not just going to randomly fly out just because he moves sideways a little bit.
Now, is this a method of getting them used to earplugs because you can't roll it too good when it's in that stocking?
You can roll them better than you think in the stocking. Okay. It just takes a little bit of practice because you've got a knot in there. So usually what I do is I'll take the knot and have that at the bottom of the ear so that as I roll, the knot ends up at the top.
Good.
I like these just because I'm a little bit vain when it comes to my horses, and I don't like having stockings flopping around. It just doesn't look good to me. But that's neither here nor there. The stockings are a really good way of just getting them. You won't forget to take the earplugs out when you have stockings on because you'll see your horse running around with floppy things. And that is one thing you really don't want to forget to take the earplugs out because if they stay in too long, they can cause ear infections. A couple hours isn't going to hurt them, but you don't really want them staying in overnight or 24-hour type thing.
I fess up. I forgot and left mine in all night one time.
I did too. I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning and remembered it and got up and put a robe on and went out to my pasture to get them out of my horse's ears. Because I knew if I didn't do it then, I'd forget in the morning and they'd stay in another night.
Yeah. We used them. Well, I say we. I used them. I actually had a pair that was spongy, but it was in the shape of a cone. It wasn't round.
They do make those. I believe the Cashel brand makes those.
But it's same principle. It was just made as a cone. It was small at the bottom, and you just gently push them down in. I used them when we were in the story of Jesus, and the white horse was right in front of a lot of fireworks. Good thing they were behind him. He wasn't looking at them too much, but it worked very well. So what else we got?
Another noisemaker would be a whip. Slightly different sound, but if you've got a cow whip or something, you can have somebody crack that. Skipper doesn't have it out here with him.
Somebody bring me a whip, please. I'm getting my shoulder replaced. It don't matter now.
And I will say, I don't know how he'll react to a whip. He hasn't been around them much, and I highly doubt that he's going to like it very much.
You know, there's so many
that's
things,
okay.
You know, depending on where you're at. You know, you can do firecrackers. I started teaching the white horse fireworks with firecrackers. You know, I didn't have the little poppers. But, you know, whether you start with a 22 with shorts in it, just shooting it in the ground, there's a lot of different things you can do to make that noise. You know, you can record, thank you, Alan. You can record fireworks, go on YouTube and find the kind of fireworks you want, record it on your phone, and then play it in the stall. Get them used to it.
And keep in mind, he does have his earplugs in, so this is no longer as loud to him as it is to us.
Made him poop.
Scared the poo out of him. And I honestly thought he would react more than he is. Now, we could try taking the earplugs out. And I'll take them out the same way that I put them in. I'm going to stick my finger kind of behind the earplugs and roll them out.
We ready?
Notice again, I'm putting him between, on the outside of me.
We lost sound on Tegan. She's checking it.
Yeah, I got a red light.
Need batteries in that one. That means you don't talk now. He was jumpier on his right side than on his left. Back there. I'm not very good left-handed, so you better not put your head over there. Get back. See, it wants to keep creeping up on me. I'm not going to protect you. Not everybody can stand on it and then throw it.
Hey, that's another desensitizing. Okay, I'm back on. And I can truly say this pony has never had this done with us.
You should grease. Okay, I've had enough of that. But there's so many, use your imagination. When you're around animals, use your imagination. How many different things can you do? Kind of works for people too.
I'll prepare him for you by putting his earplugs in.
Okay. I want to go back and Kathy said you didn't hear me last week, because if you'd have heard me, you'd have applauded. You don't understand that Christians have more religious freedom now than they've had in the last 51 years. We don't even understand what it was, because it wasn't on the news that we have this religious freedom that we used to not have. It all started in 1971, and they called it the lemon test. And it actually, I don't fully understand it, but somehow the state gave a private school some resources. I don't know if it was books, pencils, or money. But separation of church and state. Can't do that. So it was the lemon test. And for 51 years, they used the lemon test to determine the outcome of these lawsuits. And that lemon test got overthrown. And we're going to talk about how did it get overthrown in a little bit and what that means to us as Christians. Where's your guns?
Say, you ready for the big toys?
Ready for the big toys. How many want big fireworks?
So for everybody wondering, there are not live bullets in this. The ammunition in this stuff dissipates within 25 to 30 feet of the gun. So nobody's going to get hit with anything, I promise.
Just so you know, there's live ammunition in mine.
Well, I have another one that has that too, but it's
Okay.
not in that box. So in doing this, I'm going to approach it very much the same way that we've approached the other stuff. I'm not going to point it at him. I'm not going to make everything go bang going straight towards him. I'm going to walk him around, and I'm going to shoot it a little up and forward so that he can see it and the sound is going away from him. As I said, he's handled this before, but he never really liked it. And that's a half load. That was not a full strength load.
That was a half jump.
Yes, that was a half jump. And so I'm not going to rapid fire them right now because I don't want to send him totally over the edge. I want him to just kind of, okay, that didn't kill me. Off we go again. Another reason to be doing it in front of us is so that when he does jump, it's away from me and not over me. And like I said, he has been shot off of before. We have done some very light competitive mounted shooting. He was not a fan. He tolerated it. Another way that you can help approach this is have a buddy horse that doesn't mind all the scary stuff, and let that buddy horse kind of show your scared horse that, you know, it could be scary, but it's really not going to kill you. You'll be fine. I do have a full load in here. It might be next. Notice I didn't start with the full load. I wanted to prepare him a little bit. This is all about preparing. We don't get that option with fireworks, but we can start it now so that the fireworks aren't as bad. And I believe my next one is back to a half so that he doesn't think that every time it happens, it's going to be crazy scary.
And that's with earplugs.
And that's with earplugs. This one's empty. I got to get the other one if you want more.
Okay. One of the things that I really enjoyed watching. Tanya Scott used to do mounted shooting practice, and she's just over here on Turkey Creek Road. And I was intrigued with it. You know, I shot some off my horse, but it was never blanks. And what they would do before the mounted shooting practice, and if you don't understand, they set up 10 balloons in different patterns, depending on, and they've got different patterns. And then you run through it and you shoot it. It's a penalty. How much if you miss a balloon?
5 second penalty.
5 seconds if you miss a balloon, and it's a timed event.
You can't outrun 5 seconds. Not when people are running 10 and 13 second runs.
You know, but it really amazed me though, because as they were getting ready, Tanya would stand in the middle, and it was an arena, and horses was just walking around. Good horses, new horses, old horses, and Tanya she had some with a quarter round, because it's just powder. A quarter powder, half powder, 3/4 all the way. And she would randomly shoot, same exact thing that you're doing, except for it was everybody riding their horse. And there is safety in numbers. Horses find a lot of that.
And what I was talking about with the buddy, what we would do is the new horse would go on the outside of the circle, and you'd put an older seasoned horse that did not care a lick, and you'd put that on the inside right next to the new horse. So the new horse had the safety of a seasoned buddy, and that buddy was between the danger and the new horse.
That's good training.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I mean, they're going to shoot. That's what mounted shooting, that's what they do. They practice and they do competition. But we go back to the 4th of July fireworks, and you know, like I say, I want to tell you, I'm a big component of not a blacked out fly mask, but a fly mask that makes it dimmer, and loud music. Start playing the music now. You know, just get them used to it. So what other little tip would you have? I mean, music, fireworks, it's a little bit late to go to the vet and get drugs.
Unless you have an absolute solid working relationship with your vet, it is going to be too late to do that. Vets will not dispense medication unless they've seen your horse within the last year. But there is a gel that you can get from your vet that will sedate the horses if you either don't have time to go through this, or there are a few horses out there that it does not matter how much you desensitize, they still react. It's not a lot of horses, but they are out there. Fans, turn every single fan on in your barn.
Lights on.
Lights on helps drown out the flashing of the visual of the fireworks. The radio is awesome. Turn it up as loud as you can get. Put multiple radios in there. The earplugs. Buddies. Make sure you've got buddies that don't care if you can do that. Lots of hay. Give them hay. Some horses, when they're scared, they won't eat, but if there's a chance that they will, it'll help distract them.
I may have missed one of the things that you said. I don't know if you answered it or not, but we had a question on Facebook, is which is recommended? Keep them in the stall during the fireworks or letting them free range?
That is one you have to know your horse. The 3 horses I've got at home right now, 6 in one, half dozen in the other, they do not care. An old horse that I had that was scared of the flash, she would run herself ragged in the pasture. So she had to stay in. So you really just kind of have to know your horse on that one.
I will say that I've heard probably more accidents of them getting scared and running through a fence outside because they can get running wide open.
Yeah, I would agree with
then,
that.
you know, they get another boom and they look back and they're through a fence. In a stall, you know, I don't know. I didn't grow up around a lot of fireworks, so but I always had mine turned out. But I think you got to know your horse for that. But that's a really good question. If I didn't know, and it depends on when I laugh when you say turn them out. What are you talking about? I was talking about 15 acres. You know, some people's talking about a half an acre.
Yeah.
There's a lot of difference, but the bigger the turnout, the faster they get to running. And I think the more apt they are to go through a fence. So,
if a stall's not an option and you have a round pen, maybe the round pen.
Yeah.
Where if they do get running, it's round and they don't get
it's a good idea.
huge running start straight at a fence.
I really like that.
Because some horses can't be stalled. They go nuts in a stall, but they freak out with the fireworks too.
I've got one more suggestion. Have you got any more? I got one more.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to say sell your horse.
You already did.
Oh. If a hurricane was coming and you had to take your horse and go to higher ground, you wouldn't think anything about it. If you live in an area that has a lot of fireworks, make preparation to take your horse to a friend's house, just like you would evacuation, to where maybe they're in a closed-in stall, to where they can't see and they can muffle the sound and all of that. But take that in consideration. You know, there's some places that maybe you can go where the fireworks is very minimal, a long ways off. You ain't got everybody in the neighborhood shooting them off. But,
we actually had one person do that. A friend of mine, their next door neighbors have a huge display, and their display goes off about 30 feet from her barn, because of where her barn's located, and her horse was the only one on the property. So she asked if he could come to my place, and I mean, she's a dear friend, and I know her, and I know the horse, and everything gets along. So it was like, yeah, he can come here for a couple days. That's fine. He knew our horses, so we didn't have any trouble there. But it helped save her the stress of wondering if he would destroy himself. And right now, we don't have a lot of people around us that do a ton of fireworks. We used to, but we don't now. So it worked out. So that's definitely an awesome option, is if you can't do anything else, if you can relocate your horse for a few days.
do they have anything at, say, Tractor Supply, that a sedative for horses?
No, any type of sedative you've got to get, a true sedative you've got to get from a vet. They do have calming supplements. They're going to work a little differently on every horse, and there's a lot of different ones out there, but if you've got a horse that's like really, really crazy, they're not going to really touch them. If you've got a horse that you just kind of need to take the edge off, starting them about a week in advance might help.
Yeah, it would be equivalent to some of you having wine before you go to bed. Just take the edge off, huh? But I mean, I'd really like for some of you to consider, if your horse is bad, if you're scared of his life, evacuate him.
Yeah.
Take him somewhere else. Take him to the country where there's not as much fireworks. All right, do we have any questions for Tegan about this? All right, we're going to go on. I want to share you back a little bit more about that lemon test, because what it did was it stopped everything Christian and government. Now, when you say government, because schools are government funded, it meant everything Christian at schools too. They did it. It stopped everything Christian. Do you understand when you say government, that in 1921, there was 23.7 million people who worked for the government. That's not counting the schools that's government funded. That's not counting anything that's government funded. There's millions and millions and millions of people that they were told, you can't do that. Nothing Christian here. How many people were told, you can't pray here. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't have a cross up. You can't have scripture up in your office. The lemon test said nothing Christian. And it's kind of like when they took prayer out of school, we did nothing. You see, we got to where we're at because good, hardworking people did nothing. You know, and we've got to start making a stand because the ball is now rolling in our favor. I want to, first of all, I want to show you where this is coming from. I'm really trying to choose my words good here today. Oh, you wait till I get on drugs from this shoulder surgery. You're going to...
He does not get a microphone during that time, in case he asks.
One of the things that we need to start working towards is every government official has to sign an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of their state. Now, Florida, they're very much alike. But there's so many politicians that are not upholding this Constitution. And in the Constitution, the First Amendment gives us 5 rights, God-given rights, that they cannot take away. Do you know what they are? You see, we let them take away because we don't even know what they are. You know, thank goodness for, the Hall lady, Chris Ann Hall. She teaches this Constitution. She's a Constitution lawyer. But the 5 rights are, and you need to memorize these because we're going to start putting them to practice. The freedom of religion. Now, what does that mean? It means they can't shut your church down. They can't. They can't dictate what I say from the church. They cannot. And it falls into the next one, the freedom of speech. The thing right now is not only can they not stop me from speaking, they can't make me speak something I don't want to speak. Now, you're going to understand that a little bit later. I'm going to give you an illustration. But the freedom of press. We got freedom. All the press is on their side. And if you don't watch podcasts from people you know, if you don't follow somebody that is conservative, you don't have a clue. You didn't know that in New York they were saying, we're here, we're queer, and we're after your children, because that ain't on the news. You've got to follow somebody you trust. So the freedom of assembly, that's what they can't make us stop. And the freedom to petition, that's like, okay, y'all are doing it wrong and we've come here to tell you you're doing it wrong. And that's where we're going. I want to share a couple of stories with you as we end. Let me find what page I'm on here. The first one, I'm going to start with Joseph Kennedy. He was a 20-year Marine. And he comes home, he's got 5 children, and I don't know what kind of job he had, but if you've been a Marine for 20 years, you stay in shape. And he was out jogging one day, and he happened to have a Burlington football jersey on. And he's jogging, and his car pulls up along beside him and says, hey, can I talk to you a minute? He said, would you consider being the football coach for the high school? And he kind of laughed at him, this 20-year Marine. I'll think about it. They had a good conversation and he went on jogging. Well, I don't know exactly how many days later, but him and his family watched the movie, Facing the Giants. If you've never seen this movie, I highly recommend you watch this movie because it's about a football coach that took a team that was nothing and took them to the state championship. And one of the things that he did is after every game, he went to the 50-yard line, kneeled, and prayed, thank you, Lord, for keeping us safe, for the freedom to play football. Just a little short prayer. So Joseph Kennedy felt like that was a sign from God. He was a Christian and he wanted to make an impact on the children, and he accepted the job. And after every game, win or lose, didn't matter, he went to the 50-yard line by himself, took a knee, and had a silent prayer. They said in the beginning it was 15 seconds. He just thanked the Lord. Well, as time went on, some of the players wanted to go with him. Well, you're not going to tell a student, no, you can't come with me, I'm praying by myself. So, but as it went on, more players started coming. More players started coming. Hey, one of the things I liked, and now you got to use your imagination, players from the other team started coming. Well, when they did, he would take one helmet from each team and hold them up and pray. Because it wasn't about his team. It was about the children and what we're teaching them through football and through life. And it got to where the whole teams would come out. The coaches from the other team would come out because they knew it was about the children. It wasn't about winning or losing. That went on for 7 years until somebody complained. When somebody complained, the school board told him, you can't go out on the 50-yard line no more. And he says, well, yeah, it's my right. It's my right to pray. Well, you can't do it there. We'll find you a place out of the public where you can pray. And I don't know Kennedy's exact words, but it was something along the line, I just served 20 years in the military to protect my right of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. I spent 20 years standing up for the Constitution, and it's going to stand for me. He got fired because he refused. You see, that's what it takes, is a few men that's willing to get fired, a few women that's willing to get fired to stand up for what they believe, whether it's the Constitution or it's God. What's right? What's wrong? Long story short, he got fired. Now let me tell you about another guy. His name was Harold. He was in, I think, Baltimore City Hall had 3 big flagpoles in front of City Hall. And they had, I'm guessing, it doesn't say in the report, but I'm guessing it had the American flag, it had the state flag, and then it had a flagpole that anybody could make a petition to use for a day for an event. And all you had to do was fill out an application. If that day was free, you could raise your flag for your cause. Now, I know in the story that the LBGQ raised their flag one day. And I don't know how many other flags were raised, but he had started an organization called the Foundation of the Constitution. And he taught Constitution stuff. And it was Constitution Week, and he wanted to fly the Christian flag. Well, when he filled out his application, they turned it down. Why? They told him, we can't fly a Christian flag. Now, if you'll change the wording, we don't care what the flag looks like. But we can't fly a Christian flag. Just change the wording on your application and you can fly your flag. And he refused. He said the Constitution says freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And that was in 2015. No, that was 2017. Kennedy got fired in 2015. He had taught for 7 years. This happened in 2017. It took till 2022 for both cases to make it to the Supreme Court. Now, all the way up the courts, they kept getting denied. But when it got to the Supreme Court, because now the Supreme Court has 6 conservative judges and 3 liberal judges, the lemon test got overruled. It's dead. It's gone. They cannot use that against us anymore. Yeah, that's something worth playing. Now, let me tell you, I don't know what happened on the flag issue, but I do know that that ruling helped change the lemon test, because they said, you are discriminating against Christians when they say you can't fly a Christian flag. So that was huge in the Supreme Court. Like, this is black and white. This is crazy. What do you mean? Because it says Christian, you can't fly. That's discrimination. I don't know where that case went, but let me tell you about Judge Kennedy. It took 7 years of fighting in the court system. Every court, he lost and he lost and he lost. They teased him about he lost every game and then won the Super Bowl. Because when he made it to the Supreme Court ruled in his favor, and they did a settlement with Birmingham School Board for $2 million, and he gets his job back. You cannot keep Christianity out of schools or the government. We have a freedom of speech and a freedom of religion. And if we don't stand for it, if the church don't stand, if the preachers don't, if you want one nation under God, who's the best to teach us how to be that? That's the preacher's job, is to teach, encourage, and promote godly morals. People, the ball is rolling. God is changing things. And it's going to be up to us to keep that. Not for this generation, but for generation and generation and generation to come. We have got to work at how do we keep this one nation under God. But let me tell you, LBGQ is mad. They are fighting tooth and nail. This is discrimination. They've gone backwards. Yeah, they have. They've gone backwards for 50 years because for 50 years, Christians were told they couldn't. LBG could do anything they wanted to. They could shout, "We're here, we're queer, and we're after your children." But the Christians couldn't do nothing. And the tide has changed. We now have the government ruling. You see, back in 1776, they fought with muskets. Today, we fight in the court, in the Supreme Court, and we're winning battles, but we have to keep supporting those who will fight. You know, when they have a school board meeting, we need thousands of people there, not 50. Did you know that in a local election, that less than 10% of the people vote? And we wonder why the evil side is winning in our school boards, in our county commissioners, in our school superintendents, and in the presidency. We have got to vote godly. The difference is Satan has always tried to pull people away from God. It's time we started pulling people away from Satan. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you that none of this has caught you by surprise, and you're smiling because you're on a roll. You're changing things in America because we chose you. We want to be one nation under God, and we can't just sit around and let the other side win the battles. We've got to stand and fight in any way we can, whether it be through education or through voting, standing for what's right. As Chris Ann would say, I will not confirm. I will not comply. They've pushed me far enough. It's time to stand. Lord, I thank you for this weekend and the men who died to make us a free country. And Lord, I pray that you will have men and women stand to keep it free, to keep it one nation under God. And we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, everybody. No classes tomorrow. Kathy.
Yeah, no classes this week.
Thank you.